and welcome back to my channel. I'm Megan if you're new here, and I'm a homeschool mom to 6 kids ages 10 and under. And today's video is actually going to be teaming up for an open collab with the channels Rooted in Rest and The Waldock Way. And the subject of today's video is to do a lesson with us in our favorite subject. Now, our favorite subject happens to be history, and so we are going to do a history lesson today, and you guys can tag along. And another thing about this subject is I just recently shared a video about what my favorite history curriculum is. So if you are interested in a better inside look and the reasons why it is my favorite, I will link that video down below so you guys can check it out when this one is done. I hope you guys enjoy. Alright, so the beginning of our lesson actually begins in our morning basket time in the morning. These are usually read-alouds that I choose to go along with our history lessons. And Story of the World, which is the curriculum that I'm using in this video, actually does a great job giving reading lists that you can choose different literature selections from. So the first book I was reading was just an illustrated version, The Ride of Paul Revere. So now I have moved on and we are starting a read aloud called Mr. Revere and I, and it's just a fun read aloud from the horse's perspective. So it seems like it's going to be a fun little read. So I mentioned at the beginning of the video that I do have 6 children. Only 4 of them are school age, and they are in 5th grade, 3rd grade, 1st grade, and kindergarten, and then 2 toddlers you see running around there. And they usually hang with us while we're doing this. Snacks are always an added extra here, and they come in quite handy. So after we do our morning basket time, then we transition into our normal subjects, and we'll come back to history during nap time when it's quiet. Here we're going to read a little bit about the ways of governing during that time, like the way the government was made up. So the 18th and 19th centuries were times of great change in the way countries were governed. There were many revolutions and several new independent nations emerged. Continental Congress wrote out a petition and sent it to George III and Parliament. This petition asked the British government to remove the British soldiers, reopen the port, and repeal the taxes. The Continental Congress also warned that the colonies would no longer obey laws passed without their permission. For the first time, the American colonies were all acting together. Listen, I have some questions. Let's see how you guys do on your questions, okay, Asher? Okay, so now you may not remember this part. It just barely talked about it, but do you remember what the Act of the Union was? What it did? It joined together and it joined England, Scotland, and Wales. Not France. England, Scotland, and Wales. Scotland and Wales joined up with England, and that's what the Act of the Union was. Okay, so it says Britain had spent thousands of pounds, which is their money. Britain had spent thousands of pounds during the 7 Years' War. How did they intend to regain some of the money?
By making a law to tell the colonists to anything like newspapers or molasses or something that comes from like where?
Well, that's imported.
That's imported that they had to pay a tax.
Mm-hmm. So they made them pay a bunch more taxes than what they would in England, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so What were, let's see, Tanner. Do you remember the name of the act that taxed things like newspapers and it was
You have to pay stamper.
the Stamp Act. The Stamp Act. Yep, the Stamp Act. So who was the king in England at that time?
King George III.
King George III. Good job. Asher, was the Boston Tea Party a real tea party? What was it?
The tea board.
Who did?
The Sons of Liberty.
The colonists, right? Some of the colonists, the Sons of Liberty. Okay, hold on.
How do we get the clothes on the paper dolls?
Well, we'll do that in a second.
Yes, we are.
Okay. So another question, what was the Boston Massacre?
The Boston.
Let's see if somebody else can answer it. What was the Boston Massacre? What happened, Sophia? Remember, it had to do with the snowball fight.
Oh, the stick was in the snowball, and someone threw it at the soldier, so he got freaked out, and then they
started
fired it.
and started shooting the colonists, right? How many people were killed?
5.
5 people were killed. Yeah. Okay, so what you're going to do now is we are going to do some map work.
Yay.
Okay? So I'm going to give you a map. It says Great Britain and her colonies. Because remember, the American colonies, Sophia, listen, the colonies were just colonies. They belonged to Great Britain at the time. They weren't states yet. So let's look at this and do some map work. Now, it says Great Britain wanted to pay for the 7 Years' War, so they taxed the colonies. The colonists were unhappy with the taxes, so the British sent more soldiers to the colonies. Draw an arrow from Britain to the northern part of the colonies near Boston.
Where's Britain?
Okay, so where is Britain? It's over Great Britain. And you're going to draw a line to Boston. Do you see Boston, Marcus? No, that's Great Britain.
This to this. That.
That's Great Britain. And over here is Boston. Can you draw a line from Great Britain to Boston? Here's Boston.
Boston. Is this it, Mommy? Arrow to it.
That's Great Britain.
It's over here in the British colony.
Boston. Okay, now up above it, you're going to write the word tax. Tax. No, up above your line. Up above your line, sweetheart. Right here.
Man,
It's okay.
I'll just scribble that.
Okay, don't scribble too much. It'll make your paper yucky.
Tax. Oh.
Good job. Okay, now, the next thing says the taxes generated much income for Great Britain. Take the color green and draw, so right underneath Boston, you're going to draw a new arrow from underneath Boston with an arrow pointing to Great Britain. Okay, so this time you're going to draw from here back over to Great Britain with a little arrow pointing. Does that make sense?
From right here.
Back over to Great Britain. Yep, Great Britain. You've got it. Okay, and with the little arrow pointing. Good job. Okay, now over that you're going to draw a dollar sign because they were making them pay money to them.
What's a dollar?
Do you know how to draw a dollar sign? Good job, Sophia. Yeah, it's like an S and then 2 lines. Next it says, in protest to the taxes, 60 colonists in Boston dumped 342 chests of tea into the Boston harbor. Next to Boston, draw a little teacup. So find Boston, point to Boston. Nope, point to Boston. Yes.
Britain.
Boston. Point to Boston and draw a little teacup. so that we remember that's where the Boston Tea Party took place.
Draw a tea. Look.
Did you draw a little teacup?
I'm not good at teacups.
Well, just do your best. Okay, so Great Britain sent 30,000 more soldiers to New York. Put your finger on New York. It's underneath Boston. Put your finger on it.
I already knew.
Now you're going to draw a line from Great Britain to New York.
What? An arrow.
From Great Britain to New York this time. Okay? And you're going to draw, or you're going to write 30,000 soldiers. And for those of you who don't know how to spell soldiers or write 30,000, I'll write it on this piece of paper for you. 30,000 soldiers. Okay? Do you see how to do that?
Okay, what's 30,000? Oh, I just put a 1.
Well, turn it into all of these zeros. And then write the word soldiers. Those are so good. Yeah, you can put their uniforms on. So which kind of soldier is this?
Red coat.
Yep, the red coat's the British. And what about these?
The Americans.
So the colonials, right? Good job.